Aloha and good afternoon, everyone. It's Thursday, August 21st, 2025. The time is now 2:32 p.m. I call the Committee on Government Efficiency and Customer Services, Government Efficiency and Customer Services to order. I'd like to welcome committee members here in the chamber, committee members Cordero, Nishimoto, and Wire, and I'd also like to welcome Councilmember Tupola to our chambers today. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting pursuant by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways, in person in the council chamber and remotely. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when each agenda item is taken up and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. As both English and Hawaiian are the official languages of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and Section 1-13 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. All persons who have registered to testify in person will be called upon first. When your name is called, please come up to the testifier podium and state your name for the record. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to testify following the registered testifiers. After in-person testimony is concluded, I'll proceed to remote testimony via video conference or phone. When I call your name or the last 3 digits of your phone number, please unmute your audio or press *6 when prompted. Hawaii Revised Statute Section 92-3.7 requires that all votes at a remote meeting be conducted by roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I'll first call for objections, and if there are any, I'll call for a roll call vote. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described in the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off or silence all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Thank you, and members, please note that Resolution 25-226, which is item number 2 on the agenda, has been canceled. The committee will not engage in discussion or take public testimony on this item today. We'll bring it up at a future time. Thank you for your understanding. We'll begin with agenda item number 1. This is Resolution 25-232. This resolution accepts a gift to the city from Thales DIS USA, Incorporated, valued at $3,000 of travel, hotel accommodations, meals, and related expenses for representatives of the Department of Customer Services to attend the factory acceptance testing for the upgraded driver's license and state ID card production system project from September 15th to 19th, 2025 in Austin, Texas. We have with us Kimberly Ashiro, Director of the Department of Customer Services.
Hi, good afternoon. Chair Dos Santos-Tam, Vice Chair Wire, and members. Kim Hashiro, Director for the Department of Customer Services. We are requesting your support on the acceptance of this gift. This is actually going to be the next phase in our driver's license state ID upgrade project, and this is where staff that actually uses the system is going to be participating in testing and going through various work scenarios to ensure that the new upgraded system meets requirements and that they also understand how the processing is going to occur, because there will be some changes and streamlining with the new system.
Okay, members, any questions? Okay, seeing as there are no questions, we'll proceed with in-person testimony and also remote testimony. Clerks, do we have anyone registered either in person or online or standing by either here in person or online to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, there being none, members, we are in discussion. Any discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, the chair recommends a resolution 25-232 be reported out for adoption. Any objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. As agenda item number 2 was canceled, we're going to move on to agenda item number 3, which is Bill 5, 2025. This bill repeals Article 4 in Chapter 3 of the Revised Ordinances of Honolulu 2021 related to poundmasters and adds a new Article 4 to address the duties and functions of a farm animal control contractor. Members, we do have a posted CD1 to the bill identified as OCS 2025-0652/8/13/2025 through 38 p.m. and a summary of the amendments was also posted. Councilmember Tupola, I don't know if you have any comments as a co-introducer of this bill.
No, I just believe that we need it. I think maybe a few amendments that I'll talk through with the director, but thank you so much for your partnership on this.
Oh, thank you. All right, we have the Director of the Department of Customer Services here.
Hi. So, sorry. Kim Hashiro, Director for the Department of Customer Services.
Okay, any comments or any questions, members, or any comments from the department?
Go ahead, Councilmember.
Tupola.
Okay, thank you so much. Director, your thoughts, please. I have a few thoughts, but I'm sure you do too. So why don't you go ahead?
So we began this process of trying to obtain a poundmaster contractor last fiscal year. There was a budget proviso of $100,000 for this, and we started the procurement process last August. It did not result in a lot of response. We posted an RFI twice to see what kind of services were available. And when we actually posted the solicitation, one contractor responded, and it was determined that the pricing schedule was very high, and so we were not able to award. So that's the latest update on the contract. There is no funding budgeted this fiscal year for that service. However, we are starting or going to soon be starting the fiscal 27 budget cycle.
So when you say that the contract was priced high, in your, was it an RFI or RFP?
So we posted 2 RFIs where we asked potential prospective contractors to provide proposals, and then we posted a RFB, which essentially is, RFQ, wrong alpha. So essentially, once we posted, a proposal came in, and based on the market research that had been done by purchasing, the pricing was quite high. For example, think for one animal with the capture, containment, support, care of the animal, it was $12,000 per instance. We were not expecting that. And it was very late in the fiscal year when that occurred, and so we did not have time to repost.
Okay, so I think so the RFQ was you guys asking them to suggest what the prices should be at. And that's why when they came back, you were like, okay, this is not what we were expecting. And when you said based on market, what other prices were you looking at in other states or?
Yes,
So other states have this particular function.
or something similar.
Okay, so for one animal, what would you suggest?
So I was thinking that it was going to be more in the ballpark of $2,000 to $3,000 or something around that range. But that was why we had done some preliminary inquiries to see what was out there. The RFIs were very different from what the actual bid proposal came in at. So we weren't expecting that, and we're actually hoping for something more reasonable. I'd mentioned to council previously that we did not want to have some kind of contract where we were paying a fee monthly.
Right.
We wanted it per instance.
And then in regards to, I guess if we put out an RFP and had these prices, I'm not sure, did your RFQ relate different animals for different costs, or was it just any stray animal, what would you charge?
Right, correct.
I see.
And it was based on the definition of estray.
Okay, so would we be willing, if it was in the budget, and if we were able to go out again, to actually do an RFP based on the information you gathered about what is market rate instead of doing an RFQ so that we can see if anybody would even bid on it?
We could consider that, yeah, as a I guess, next step process.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to be a little bit of sorting out. So, and to be honest, the amount of times we find these estrays out is few and far between. So I don't really think we're going to be expending hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this. And to your point, we wouldn't contract somebody on a monthly basis to just hang around in case a cow runs out. So I think with that being said, I'll work with budget chair to see if we can put something aside so that we can try to pursue the process again. But in regards to Bill 5, do you have any comments on that?
No, we reviewed it and been in communication previously on this. And so with the amendments in the CD1, we're okay with it.
Okay, thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And just quickly, I was curious, Director, if you could kind of describe the setup and the request that went out, or I guess the proposal that was received. So I know you said it was $12,000. So that's to go do the collection and then the storage indefinitely, or was there, how does that function?
Sorry, I need to correct myself. It was 15,500
Okay.
was actually the amount. And the way it was broken down was for response and capture services, and then daily care and shelter, extended shelter care. So this would be if the animal couldn't be returned quickly to its owner, and then disposal or humane euthanasia. And then there was also a provision for extraordinary emergency transportation. So depending on the size and location, if let's say a helicopter was needed and there is an hourly rate inserted.
Okay. Are there any issues on the long-term storage and euthanasia on the legal side? Like say the city pays someone to collect it. Is there a certain amount of time they have to wait before they give it back to the owner?
I'm not aware of a certain amount of time to return. This hasn't actually come up very often, as Councilmember Tupola mentioned. So we're still exploring what the actual need is for this, or trying to understand it.
Yeah, I'll ask because we had in the item canceled with some community members wanting like sanctuary for horses. And so I'm just thinking like, I'm surprised the number of folks that applied was so small, because I feel like there's a lot of folks with like ag land that could go pick up animals and store them and but then I guess it's long-term storage and what that looks like. And if the expectation is like there's gonna be any liability, like say hypothetically someone picks it up, stores it, no owner, euthanize, and then, not wanting someone to come around after the fact. So I just wasn't familiar with the legal structure around that.
Well, I would hope that the way our solicitation was structured, we're looking at 5 days or less and then 5 days or more. So we're hoping that the return, the capture, care, and return to its owner would occur within that 5 days, and that anything beyond that would be considered an extended period of time, which I think 5 days is reasonable.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Mahalo. Mahalo, Chair.
Members, any other questions on this? Okay, seeing none, why don't we proceed to testimony? Clerks, do we have anyone registered either remotely or online, or waiting to testify either either in person or online, or standing by either in person or online?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, we are in discussion. Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. I will say that on Tuesday it was brought up at my neighborhood board. There were people on, but people have mentioned it to me. I hate to be like the only person with animals running around in my district, but it happens. So I appreciate you doing the CD in support. Of course, appreciate the director. And I think, moving forward to see if we can allocate money and see if we can RFP it out so that people can see. The only people that bid were people that I told, because I don't really think that most cattle ranchers are looking for things to bid on. So I think I could kind of play a better role in that. There's only, like Councilmember Wire said, there's only so few of them on this island. So maybe if an RFP comes out, I can do a better job with the Cattlemen's Association to kind of disseminate it. But thank you, Chair, for your support.
No, thank you. And I think that this bill is going to create a pathway and a structure to do this. And again, we'll keep on seeking out potential, contractors to help take care of this, because it is an important thing. And, maybe one of the goats in Kalihi will get lost and we'll have to return them, or I don't know, some other critter somewhere. So, all right. If there's no further discussion, the chair recommends that Bill 5, 2025 be amended to the posted proposed CD1, identified as OCS 2025-0652, and be further amended to include a verbal amendment that is on page 1 of Bill 5 under duties, which is subsection A. It should be amended by striking out the words "the city" and instead reading "the Department of Customer Services or another department designated by the mayor." may enter into this. And this would specify that it's the Department of Customer Services or another department designated by the mayor to carry this out. Yeah. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. I have a question on, and this is a serious question because this affects us. I think maybe, where does Wallabies fall under then?
Wallabies are not, that is a great question. As far as I can read the bill, wallabies are not on the, would not be covered by this because they are not farm animals, and they are also not typically owned by private individuals in the same way that cows and goats and other things might be. But that's a great question.
Okay, that definitely affects both of us. Thank you.
Yeah, but if there is a stray wallaby, you can bring it to me, and I'll take very good care of it. It'll be so cute. All right. So again, the recommendation was that it be amended to a posted proposed CD1 with a verbal amendment as described. Any objections or reservations? Okay, hearing none, the bill is amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Bill 5, 2025 CD1 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. All right, members, moving to the last item on our agenda. This is informational briefing item number 4. This is an overview of the rulemaking process of the City and County of Honolulu. Members, a copy of the presentation was distributed to each of you, and it's available online in H&L Doc Communications as MM131 under Mayor's Messages. We have with us Managing Director Mike Formby, Corporation Counsel Dana Viola, and Deputy Corporation Counsel Daniel Gluck for a brief presentation. But before we do that, I'm going to call for testimony so we can get that out of the way. We do have Angela Melody Young registered remotely. Is Ms. Young online?
Chair, she's not online.
Okay, and then clerks, do we have anyone either registered in the chamber or online or standing by here in the chamber or online to testify on this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, seeing none, we'll close testimony and we'll proceed with the presentation.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Dos Santos-Tam, Vice Chair Wire, and Council members, Mike Formby. By the way, Dwayne Pang is here in lieu of Daniel Gluck today. So we put together a one-page, really sort of a cheat sheet of the rules that govern rulemaking. And it basically, I'll just highlight some specific sentences that I think summarize where we're at. First off, it's all governed by Chapter 91, Hawaii's Administrative Procedure Act, HAPA. And government agencies are required to conform with HAPA. So in the second paragraph, it's important to note that the definition of a rule does not include internal management of an agency and rules not affecting private rights or procedures available to the public. So it really is applicable to the public when there's something that they need to know that is not evident in the ordinance or the law itself. In the third paragraph, rules are required so that the affected public can fairly anticipate or address the procedure. And then the last paragraph basically sums it up, the very last sentence. If the ordinance contains sufficient specificity to inform the public, even if the ordinance states that the agency shall adopt rules, rules would not be mandated by HAPA. So that's basically the rule, and in working with the departments, Corporation Counsel typically makes a decision whether or not they believe rules are necessary. And I will say that there are many times where we adopt rules where they're maybe perhaps not required by HAPA, but we think they still will assist the public. An example of that would be right now we're drafting and about to publish rules for the Community Workforce Agreement. And the reason for that is we don't want the city to be in a position where a contractor protests a CWA and we don't have rules to show that it was clear to the public on how it's enforced. So we're going through that process right now, but both Dana Viola, Dwayne Pang, and myself are here to answer any questions you may have. It's not quite as black and white as one would think. It's really gray, gives us room to interpret, but we're here to answer questions.
Okay, members, any questions on this topic? Any questions? Okay, if not, I have a few. So I really appreciate this brief presentation, as brief as it may be, because in the first paragraph, as you mentioned, the agencies always have the power, whether it's may or shall, to do so if it's necessary for the public's benefit.
That's correct.
And similarly, even if the rules say shall, you're not obligated to. Even if we as a council say you shall, and every other time we say shall, it means you shall.
You must, but this does not, because it's governed by HOPA and not necessarily by the ordinance or law itself.
Would it be beneficial, well, backing up, I think my office counted 36 instances where we created rulemaking ability, and of nine of them, the agencies don't seem to have adopted rules, even if it says shall. Would it be helpful to change those to may, just so the public's not confused?
Yeah, Chair, if you don't mind, I'll ask Dana Viola to come up and address that. And by the way, I do want to thank you and your staff for the considerable research that you did into this. Dana has been working with the individual departments where there was a requirement that the rules were not drafted. So I appreciate all that hard work. We acknowledge it was a lot of work, and we thank you for that.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Dana Viola, Corporation Counsel. So it really will depend based on essentially how the rules are processed or how rulemaking is required. Even if it says shall, again, you don't necessarily have to pass rules. It would be a cleanup to essentially take out the shall and change it to may, but that's not necessary because the predominant rule which would preempt essentially any kind of designation by council is the state law, right? So you don't have to change it. It would be a cleanup, and you can notify the public because there will be, if there is any question whether or not it shall or may, that would be a cleanup. I think a cleanup just for purposes of notification. But legally speaking, the interpretation would rest on whether or not we feel the statute dictates whether or not we pass rules or not.
Okay. And then what is the procedure in the event that the council feels that rules should be made, that the procedures perhaps are inconsistent from our perspective, or it would benefit the public to have rules? How can we compel rulemaking to happen?
And that's when you would work with the departments, I think, because again, it would be discretionary on the part of the department to provide more explicit details on how to implement. But then again, if the statute and or the ordinance provide for sufficient guidelines to the public on how the law would operate, then the rules would not be required by law. If you want to make a recommendation to the departments that you feel that there's further clarification necessary, then I think that doesn't prevent council from working with the departments to perhaps ask for further clarification. But again, it wouldn't be legally mandated.
Members, any questions? Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. Is there a preference on the department side in terms of whether we want enough specificity in ordinances as they're passed versus providing for rulemaking? Yeah.
I guess that's the $100,000 question, right? Because if you provide more explicit details in the ordinance, then it might take longer to pass the ordinance. There'll be details that would be maybe subject to dispute. And then if you wanted to change the ordinance, you'd have to go through the ordinance amendment procedure, which is more time consuming than a rule change would require. So it really depends on, I think, on the circumstances. Something like, some of the tax benefits, those are pretty explicit in the ordinances. And so in those situations, you don't need further details on how it's going to be implemented in the rules. And that's, I think, something that you'd want to spell out in the ordinance. So something that would be straight, more or less black and white is better to put just on a practical, as a practical matter, to put it in the ordinance. And then you wouldn't have to go through additional rulemaking to clarify how this would be implemented.
That makes sense. I appreciate that. Last question was just, because I know sometimes, like, administration council independently, collectively will be evaluating rules and contemplate maybe they need adjustments. Would it ever be quicker just to make an ordinance change to effectuate more specificity that overrides the rule? And I ask that because I know it might come up from time to time.
It would depend on the context again, right? So, and it's a prerogative of the council to consider whether you want to essentially dictate it in the ordinance as opposed to allow for further clarification by the departments in the rules.
Yeah.
But usually the rules will deal with implementation. You basically give a roadmap to the public on how the department will be implementing a particular law. So that's usually the general, parameters, but it would depend again on the specific situation that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I wouldn't suggest there's in this way is even disagreement, but just curious in terms of to be more efficient and quick, if it's sometimes faster, because I know the rulemaking process so it seems it could be more cumbersome sometimes than the actual passing bills, but I don't know if that's the case,
Well, I think, based on the list that was compiled, I think by Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam's staff, I think the rules, and at least the ones that are required by law, supposedly says shall in the ordinances. I think the city has made pretty good progress on passing most of the rules that I think are required by law. So that would imply that it's not an overly burdensome process. It's not a quick one, but I think that if you follow the procedures, it's relatively straightforward.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councilmember Cordero?
Thank you, Chair Dos Santos-Tam. Hi, Corporation Counsel Viola. I have a question as it relates to the ability for agencies to make a decision to update the rules and then to trigger the start point to go through rule making or rule changing. First off, does that happen often? Is there a requirement for the different agencies to then look at a certain program or to then make that suggestion to update the rules?
Rule amendments are required if the department is going to change the process. So if there's criteria or different procedures that they're going to implement and impose upon the public, then they're obligated to amend the rules because they're obligated to notify the public.
Okay, thank you. And let's say if there's a new program, we'll use the Transit Construction Mitigation Fund, for example, and updating rules through that manner because there were either complaints or need for updates once the department started to implement it. Can that happen pretty quickly, or what would that timeline be?
So it's the same timeline as the regular rule adoption. So, there's a notification period, and then there's a public hearing, and then there's consideration of public testimony. So it's the same process for amendments.
Okay. I had another question, but I failed to remember it, but I'll let that pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nishimoto, any questions? Okay. I have a few questions. There's a number of rules that date back to, say, the 80s, and I guess since then, they haven't needed to be changed. But is there a process to, on the regular basis, review the rules, especially when changes happen? For example, DPP just implemented new software, and it's basically fully online. But a lot of the rules refer to things on paper. Is there a process to regularly review?
I don't know the regular process for reviewing, I think, any updates. There's some rules, I think one of the rules that you included in your list dates back to 1969. So, there's some very old rules in place, and I'm not even sure that some of these rules are still actually implemented. So, I think that, that's something that the department should be looking at. So, but I can't speak for the departments. I don't know.
Managing Director, is that something that someone in the city does?
So, Chair, I think the question goes to the new software and the new system that we're
That's
using.
an example. That's just an example of a situation changing, and the underlying rules speak to paper in this instance. And obviously, we don't have paper, and the processes have changed such that the rules probably need to be updated. Is there a process to regularly trigger updates?
Yeah, I believe so, and I think in this case, there are many rules in DPP that are not necessarily HOPA required. They're simply administrative rules for the purposes of informing the public about how we do stuff internally in DPP as it relates to applications. So I think we have to review all of that in DPP now that we're updating our software. And I think Director Takeuchi Apuna with Deputy Brian Gallagher need to do that. I know they've been putting out FAQs and information on their webpage to update people on the new software, but I think they need to go back and look at rules as well.
Yeah, and I'm not picking on them. I mean, I imagine across all the departments, there's probably rules that haven't been touched in a long time, and it's just worth dusting them off and seeing if conditions have changed.
Yeah, I know, I appreciate that. I'll bring that up with Cabinet and make sure that there is a process whereby we review them for currentness.
Okay, members, any other questions, members? Okay. All right. Well, any closing statements from either Managing Director or Corporation Counsel?
No, other than thank you for the topic. We appreciate this. It gives us a chance to work with the departments and make sure everything's current. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And we're going to continue on some of the cleanup things, and that may include provisions related to rulemaking throughout the ordinance, especially if they're not necessary, or the departments have found that it's the existing ordinance is sufficiently clear. So, all right, with that, members, any other discussion or questions, any other business? All right, seeing that there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned. It's 3:04 p.m.